let's start out with check-ins. Who's out there?
Oh, RD, Ann in Fort Collins.
And I only caught RT for the last. Give me the full call, please.
Kilo 0 Alpha Romeo Delta.
Good evening, Ann. Thank you very much for that. Anyone else want to check in? Please call.
W0JVD, Jack.
Jack, let me confirm that. Is that W0JAA? Is that correct?
Whiskey 0 Juliet Victor Delta.
Victor Delta. I'm sorry. Thank you very much, Jack. Anyone else want to check in?
Kilo Alpha 6 Echo Tango Echo KA6 ETE Jim in Loveland.
Jim, let's continue.
Says Kilo Echo 0 Lima Charlie Kilo KE0LCK. The other Mike from Windsor.
That's your Mike. Let's just go ahead and continue. Anybody wants to check in,
Mike,
just call.
Phil, AI 7 p.m. Echolinking from Abilene, Texas.
Oh, I'm sorry. I doubled with you. Come back with your call.
AI 7 p.m.
Let's just go ahead and continue.
Kilo Echo 0, Mike India Zulu, KE0MIZ, Rob, Owl Canyon.
Alpha Echo 0 Charlie Foxtrot, Ben, Fort Collins.
Debbie in Fort Collins with November 0 Echo Mike Papa, Greg.
Got a bunch in there, and I think I've got probably half these screwed up. K0MIZ Rob, Ben AC0, AC0 CF, and I'm sure that's wrong, Ben. We've got N0 EMP, and Debbie, I don't remember, is it N0 DBE, is that correct?
Kilo 0 DBE.
Got it. Who else out there?
Kilo Foxtrot 4 Delta Uniform Sierra KF4 DUS, Horsetooth Mike.
This is KD0TYU looking for check-ins for our TechNet for this evening. If you'd like to check in, please call.
Kilo Echo 0 Papa Uniform Quebec, Bill, Denver.
Hello, Joe. K0PRB. Not sure if you picked me up or not. I'm having radio problems on this end. K0PRB.
No, sir, I didn't, but I do have you now. K0PRB, Phil, KE0DBQ, Phil, Mike, K4DUS, my good buddy up there in the hills, and K0DBE, got that down. So, anybody else want to check in for tonight's TechNet, please call. Mark, are you still in there, W2MIC?
W2MIC, Mark. Lowland, 2 squirrels for the day.
Wow, that's cool. Okay. Anyone else want to check in for tonight's TechNet, please call. Okay, I guess we've got a full house here, pretty much. I got a good 15, 16 people here checked in. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for checking in. Anyway, let's just open this up to general conversation, and then I've got a topic in kind of the background if we need it. Anybody have any questions, comments, or something that they've basically did in the last week that might be interesting? Call now.
CK.
Go right ahead, Mike. You have the floor.
I had a question posed to me very recently by a brand new ham looking to get his first radio. What he was looking for was VHF, UHF, a mobile that he could use in different vehicles, and also in the house. So while I cautioned him about listening to anything I had to tell him, I thought here's a good opportunity for other people to weigh in with perhaps 2 alternatives. One would be just get something and get on the air cheap, or should you wait for quality and make it more expensive? Open it up.
Zero EMP, does he plan to upgrade to general or better anytime in the next year or two?
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, does he plan on upgrading to general or extra class anytime in the next couple of years?
KE0LCK, yes, Greg. He is planning to upgrade to general, but he's been bit by the bug and wants to get started right now.
I'd recommend an all-band radio like a Yaesu 991 if he can afford it, because he's going to be needing it anyway. And he can start off with it now on VHF, UHF, and when he upgrades, he's all good to go.
I forgot to mention the budget number that he gave me. It was about $350. So, next answers.
US.
K6ETE.
Mike, you were first. Go ahead. Mr. DUS.
KF4DUS. I was going to suggest the Kenwood V71, but that's a little bit out of his price range. A radio that acts like a V71, but much cheaper, is the TYT TH7800. It does everything that a V71 does, including crossband repeat. And a good place to get it would be at radiooddity.com. It's a 50-watt, 40-watt radio. It's easily movable from the car to another car to inside the house with a 12-volt power supply. And that's just my suggestion. The TYT TH7800, it's within his budget.
there was someone else in there. I didn't get the call sign. Come back, please.
This is Jim, KA6ETE. I was going to suggest if we want something that's easily transferable between his house and mobile for now, the Yaesu, the FT8900 is quad band, although the 6 meter and 10 meter don't do much because it's FM only. But the price range is within his price, and they also make a quick mount bracket where you slide it into the cage and connect the wires, and it locks it in, and then you unplug it and slide it out and take it in the house with you.
Okay, comments?
CK?
Any additional comments?
ETE mentioned a specific model number and I missed it. This KE0LCK.
That's the Yaesu, the FT8900. It's their quad band. It's, I'd say the price of it right now is like $305. There's a 50 watt quad band, crossband repeat and everything on it.
Thanks, sir.
One question about that. Mike, DUS, TYT makes a quad band. I used to have one, but I sold it. Wait a minute, I've got the box here someplace. No, I guess I don't. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, I am, but I don't recall the model number. You can find that as well at radiooddity.com, and I don't recall the price, but like ETE said, the 6 meter and the 10 meter are FM only, which you can use the 6 meter as a technician, but you can't use the 10 meter FM. But the 7800 is just a dual band, 50 watt, 40 watt. And I'm guessing it might be the 8800 TH, 8800 TYT, but I can't be sure of it. You can go to radiooddity.com and see what they have.
That would be the 9800. I own 3 of them.
Phil, I guess, I thought, for one thing, I really thought the 79 or the 8900 Yaesu was like around $400. What's the TYT sell for?
Yeah, and that's the 9800, TYT 9800 quad band, and it sells for about around $180.
Mike, LCK, question, is he talking about $350 for everything or just for the radio?
LCK. My impression was for the radio, and I caution him, because one of the few things I've learned is you got to get the antennas. You got to have good antennas, so make that part of your allowance.
K0PRB. Yes, I was going to say the same thing. If he's thinking an overall budget, yeah, I would get the radio for $160, $180, and then work on antennas. He's going to need an antenna for the house, and if he's going to use it for a mobile, he'll need it for his mobile as well.
Especially if you go into a quad band radio, because I know of a tri-band antenna. The Comet's got it. I'm not familiar with a base unit. Maybe somebody could help me out there. Base unit that would be a quad band. Well, that brought the crickets out. What do you use, Phil, for yours?
Well, I mean, currently I'm just using it on 2 bands, 70 cm and 2 meters, even at home. So I just use the Workman antenna. I can't remember the model. For the mobile, same thing. I do have a quad band mobile or an antenna for the mobile, but I haven't used it in a while. I have it set up, and since I was only using that on 70 cm and 2 meters, I swapped it out for a different one that seemed to have better SWR all around. But in a sense, they work equally. So I think the 9800 is a good deal. It has crossband repeat. It has all the other options that the Yaesu. I think that's a Yaesu 9800 as well, and it's just cheaper, and I think it's easy to use.
LCK, any comments?
I'm sorry, Joe, was that for me, LCK?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you had any comments about that. If I guess I'm kind of lost. If he's just talking $350 for radio, there's a lot of stuff out there. If he wants to stay within that, but one thing that I'm concerned about is that if he's getting into something that he can use for the general license, like the 20 and 40 bands and stuff like that, that probably is not going to happen.
I did lead him to think that there's actually, rather than getting one all band that's kind of expensive, that it might be better as a start to go the mobile rig that you could use inside the house that was dual band. And there, you'd only need 2 antennas and a mag mount. If you had 2 vehicles, you could always switch out that way. It's not great, but it'll work because you can just grab the radio and run inside like ETE was saying. You got the one, even though it's a quad band, you can have it set up a little bit easier to be removed and brought in. So that's kind of the way I was leading him, but I didn't want to give him any specific models because there's just so many available. There's a cheap way to go, and basically you end up maybe putting it in a second vehicle and then get a decent one, or do you put the money in a decent one and not have money for anything else? It's a tough situation. My advice to him was to get as much input as he can from the various people that are going to be around. So that's where I left it.
I have one quick question. Since you've met this gentleman, does he... apparently he has no license at all and wants to just get on the air. And is that right?
Yeah, suppose he was taking the test this past Saturday. I haven't heard from him since then, saying he passed it or whatever. But yeah, he's a fresh person.
This is a tough one because I'd like some input. Mark, I'd like some input from you, Phil, Mike, and Mike. Where do you start a person who's brand new at this? Do you start him off at UHF, VHF, and then gradually go into it, or do you throw it all together? Comments, please.
MIC.
Have the floor.
W2MIC. Well, despite his initial enthusiasm, I would go lowball, and I would have suggested the Baofeng UB5R, but they're kind of kaput via the FCC. There are several alternatives from VTech and others in the sub $35 range. I would start him off with a handheld, which he's going to need no matter what, an inexpensive Chinese handheld, VTech, TYT, those guys, an N9 TAX antenna for use at home, and a mag mount antenna for use in the vehicle. And I say this all because for 20 years I have run around here using nothing but a handheld at home with a base station antenna. This is 5 watts or less, but if you're on a base station antenna, whatever the lowest setting your radio will do will work, like 2 watts, 1 watt, half a watt. And because we live in repeater heaven with all of these nice mountains and nice big repeaters all around us, I have run around with a zero gain, a unity gain antenna on top of my vehicle and a 5-watt handheld, which I have always run at half a watt. And I can talk to all the repeaters in the region. Get him up on the air, get him into the community, get him up to the club meetings, get him onto TechNet, and then work up from there.
This is great conversation. Phil, do you have a comment?
Oh, I was just going to ditto what Mark said. I mean, he was right on all counts, and that's what I would start with. Get an HT. I mean, I jumped into Radio Heaven right off. I had my Yaesu 857. Sorry, Yaesu 857. Before I even took my license test, I got on there and just listened. I just perused around and had a good time. But yeah, it's not an inexpensive hobby, but it can be if you just start where Mark suggested and then work your way up. K0PRB.
DUS, Mike, do you have any comments?
I'm kind of I lean toward the TYTs because they are cheap, but they're not as cheap as a Baofeng, but they're a little bit better quality. They don't make the Tribander HT any longer. I bought a TH UV 8000 Echo for my grandson to dangle in front of his face, and it came to $75. Comes with a programming cable, and it's 10 watts. A 10-watt HT, and you can knock it down to 5 watts. But like I said, it's $75. But still, it's in the cheap range, but not quite as cheap as the Baofeng. That would be my suggestion for an HT. And again, RadioOddity.com has them for about $75.
I'm going to pass this around. Phil? I'm sorry, not Phil. Greg, EMP, what do you think?
N0 EMP. Another way he could go is he could get a good dual band for right now, since he's a tech, or we think he's a tech. The quad band, he could hold off on 10 meters and 6 meters till he upgrades and then get a dual radio, because there's not a lot going on 6 or 10 FM right now anyway. So a good dual band mobile that he can take back and forth between the vehicle and the house, and then once he upgrades, he can permanently install that mobile in his vehicle, or just leave it in his vehicle, and then get the all band shiny for his base station.
Anybody else have any comments for this gentleman?
I guess it all depends on where he wants to go. I mean, what he wants to do, where he wants to go, what area does he live? Is he along the Front Range? Is he further out east, like Greeley, Kersey, or anything like that? Because, like I said, a handheld in any of the areas around here, and they seem to work well from Greeley. I would say if he's near the repeaters, just go with the handheld for now. And Greg's suggestion is a good thing to think about at this point. So I guess more answers need to be out there to find out exactly what he's looking for.
LCK.
Go ahead, Mike.
This gentleman lives in Evans, and he's brand new. I mean, brand new. He came into my headlights when he was volunteering to be a Skywarn net controller and didn't have a license yet. And we had a discussion about that, and he understands what's required. But I know Mark and I were talking a while back on having the capability of having that handheld and having inexpensive antennas that you could hang up outside like the N9TAX and be able to get much, much further with just the handheld. And then you can hook it up and with a mag mount and use it in the vehicle. So there's a lot of positives for that to get off and see if you actually like the hobby enough. And the other thing I cautioned him about was, don't get drawn into the Ford versus Chevy thing on brands, because there are a lot of good brands, a lot of consistent brands, a lot of expensive brands, but there's a lot of hidden gems that you can get with some of the newer models and different brands. So, to be advised against doing that, but to get as much input as he could as possible. Back to you.
Mark, you mentioned something about the UV5s that everybody knows and loves or hates, whichever you prefer. I picked up one from someplace. There was a tri-bander. I haven't got it yet, but we ordered it out of Radio Diddy or whatever that place is out there. I guess I wasn't aware that I knew that there was something going on, but I wasn't aware that they were basically banning them.
Yeah, the FCC banned the sale of the UV5R because it transmits out of band.
How did I buy this one?
They're not allowed to be imported. There are still some of them sitting on people's shelves, so they're still available for sale, but there won't be. What will happen, and what is already happening, is that both Baofeng, under other names like BTEC and TYT, are introducing similarly inexpensive radios, several generations newer in technology, that do stay within band and do have clean transmissions without all the spurious out-of-band stuff, and they're still well under $50.
PRB.
Go ahead, Phil.
Well, if we're talking spurious emission, that's one thing. All of my TYTs transmit out of band on everywhere. I mean, I can transmit on just about anything outside of band within both 2 meters and 70 cm and 220. So, with that said, it's all a matter of protocol. What do you do, and how do you do it? When you think about it, even my HF radios will transmit out of band. I have a Kenwood that I can transmit out of band anywhere I want on it. So you follow protocol and follow the rules, and you're okay. But yes, even the TYT handhelds will transmit out of band.
I think it was you, Ben. Come back.
Yeah, AE0CF, I just wanted to mention that I think these Baofengs, the problem with them is that the default programming contains frequencies that are basically licensed to someone else, so that's why they're illegal. That's why they are, FCC does not like these radios. They are, quote-unquote, out of band because they are outside of the ham bands. They're clearly in the LMRS bands, and plus they're not even Part 90 compliant. AE0CF back to net.
I agree with that, but I also agree with Phil that the basic thing in here would be is that if you don't program it that way, it won't work that way. Or maybe I'm wrong. Tell me.
Fresh reset it, as in you you tell it to do a factory reset, or just buy it new out of the box. They contain frequencies that you're not allowed to transmit on, even if you have a ham license, because they are outside of the ham bands.
I understand that, but when you program a radio, you physically program it, either physically do it or you do it with a computer. And I guess, is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about a firmware setting?
Oh, well, yeah, if you program it correctly, as in you don't just take it out of the box and start transmitting with it. That FCC does not like, is that if you just buy it new, take it out of the box, and then just start transmitting out with it, okay? Program it, I think you're fine. There's no problem with the radio at all. I guess that's probably the distinction between what FCC does not like about these radios.
I'd like to go back to Mark on this because I'm still a little confused. Are we saying if we program it, or it has the ability, or if we program it, we're okay, but it has the ability to go out of band? Is that what they're saying?
W2MIC, yes. The problem that the FCC has is that these radios, the UV5R in particular, comes out of the box and will transmit on FRS, GMRS, all that good stuff, and that's technically not legal. Then the next question is, if you program one of these non-compliant radios with a good code plug so that the radio is only programmed to work within the ham bands, then you're fine. The FCC's problem is that the radios come out of the box not compliant. Sidebar, like Phil, I have several HF radios that have been completely free-banded. I am an extra, and in the case of an emergency, I will do whatever it takes to get through. Until that time, I only transmit within the ham bands.
You know, there's another aspect that that we haven't thought about. I'm just curious. Let me start with Phil. Phil, how many of the UV5s do you have?
I have two of the UV5Rs. I bought KF0CB's old radios, and so I have those. I also have the GT-3 Tango Papa. So that's Golf Tango-3 Tango Papa. Those are Baofengs as well. They seem to be rather nice. I really like working with them. But every one of these radios that I have, I did not do any factory resets or anything, but they will work on FRS, GMRS, 2 meters and 70 cm, and they will go outside the frequencies of those bands as well. So I know, I've looked and tested them to make sure, and so yeah, I mean, you don't even need to get specific with them. just right out of the box. That's the way they've worked.
Easier, yes.
Go ahead, Ben.
I guess the clarification is that I guess when we take things out of the box, we go ahead and plug it into a computer and program it. I mean, that's what we should be doing, and not just taking it out of the box and just pushing the PTT with doing anything with it. I think the main reason that that FCC is upset about these valve things is that people are just taking them out of the box and not even connecting the computer, just go and push PTT and don't even care if someone else's license to whatever frequency they're using.
Oh, I'm kind of like you, Phil. I bought Willie out, and Willie had a bunch of them. And I'm looking at this as if if they aren't for sale anymore, maybe they're worth like $100 a piece. You think?
Oh, yeah, well, it's even that. You know, maybe 7,500, you know, whatever. The two I have from Mike aren't really doing me any good. They just kind of sit around. So, you know, I just figured I'd use them out there. If somebody needed one, they can have it.
I was just kidding. I do have a question for you, Phil, that's kind of off the subject. I'm working with the Red Cross, and do you still have that, or maybe you never got it, that Jetstream antenna that Mike had? Hello, Phil. That radio's breaking up pretty bad. You want to try something else?
Okay, is this any better? I just moved to a different spot. You okay with this?
That's better.
Yeah, maybe it's just a dead spot. Yes, if that's the antenna that you loaned to Mike, that 15-footer, yes, I do still have that.
I'll buy that off of you because the Red Cross needs an antenna, and they've got a monster over there that's just not worth doing. And I thought I'd buy one, but I thought, well, maybe you'd sell that one to me.
Well, Joe, as we talked before, you can have it. You loaned it to Mike. I just acquired it later, and you can just take it off my hands if you need it.
I'm not sure that's fair because I gave it to Mike. I didn't loan it to Mike.
Nah, it's fair. I don't mind. We'll just make arrangements. You can either pick it up or I can drop it off somewhere. No big deal.
Okay, we'll work on that later. Anyway, I'm just curious, Mr. MIC, Mark, how many hundreds of UV5s have you got?
W2MIC. Well, I've been sitting here digging through my radio box trying to count at least 3, and I acquired them specifically because they do the illegal transmissions on GMRS, FRS, etc. And should an O-bleep situation occur, like the bleep hits the fan, I wanted the ability to talk to people who were not hams, but who did have FRS or GMRS radios. Let's see. Second, I ended up with a consulting gig to help a chap who was running a commercial operation on the commercial band using UV5Rs. And it turned out that he was in charge of radio communications in a food production plant in California, and they had a bunch of big freezers, and by big I mean like forklift big, and they were trying to figure out how to communicate with the operators on the forklifts inside the metal chilling rooms to the headquarters building 300 feet away. And I did quite a bit of work with him, and we got him up and going, and I kept asking, so what commercial license do you have? And the answer was none. But UV5R radios cost $25, and they work just fine on the commercial band, and there's nobody else here. And I went, okay. So this is another aspect of why the FCC is mad at the UV5R.
You're absolutely the fact that we, Darren and I and James work these bicycle and foot races for various organizations in the area, and when I was dealing with a couple of them this year, they said, well, and we loaned them, the family radios, and they were thinking very seriously about going to a more powerful one, and I said, which one? And they said, UV5, and I said, you really need a license for that? And he says, well, we know some people that don't. So I think we are seriously thinking about pulling out of that event in a hurry.
Or just continuing the education process. Yep. And so basically the UV5R model specifically has gone away. It's no longer allowed to be imported. But there are lots of other sub-$100 5 to 8 to 10 watt handhelds readily available.
This tri-bander that I got is like, it's a UV5 something else. E, I think it is, or something. But it is a UV5. It looks just like the old ones. And, geez, I hope I get it. I didn't copy that, but did I come back?
KE0MQA, I just thought I would jump in with a couple comments.
Oh, sure, go right ahead, sir.
Like MIC, I bought the UV for the purpose of getting outside of the band and be able to get on the commercial radios. And I was on somebody else's, and I had permission to use their frequency. But the way they're getting around it, because I recently bought a TYT, what they're doing is the radio comes blocked, and it's basically useless, and then there's got a few frequencies you can do, and then you get the code plug, and it unlocks it, and then it's right back to just like the old ones where it's wide open.
Any other comments about this? This is a very interesting subject.
Joseph?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I actually do also own one of the Baofeng radios that were quote-unquote banned. This is the UV82, just like the UV5R. They can come, actually they do come inside the that's not erasable frequencies that are just you need a license for. And I just wanted to add another model that also does not apply. This is the E0CF.
Well, I agree with it that you can tune it out, but I mean, legitimately, I understand why in an emergency situation you would want to tune it out like that, but from day-to-day use like we do here, I thought, well, we just tune it up and be good to go. And I do have to commend Phil, because I have a couple of those GG3s, and I really do like them. I use it for all the events. So, KE0LCK, are you still in there?
Yes, sir, boss. I'm still in here sucking all the information up.
You know what might work, and this is just a question for you. We still have the, hopefully, I guess you can use them, but you just can't sell them. Bofang giveaway for the club.
Supposedly, I talked him into coming to our next meeting and getting there early and introducing himself to me. That way I can point him out to the various people that know a lot more than I do, and we can try that also at the same time, if he's gotten his license.
Well, that's kind of, yeah. I mean, I can bring a radio if you want to, and we can, all he needs to do is just sign this document, but he has to join the club, and we'll lend it to him for 6 months or so. That's the deal.
Yeah, we'll get in contact with him. The only thing I have is email right now, and I will send him a note and see if he's interested in doing that, and then I'll let you know.
Okay, it does sound like that would be a perfect opportunity for him to get his feet wet at least. I know the minute we started that program, I knew it was going to be a success. However, we haven't used it a lot lately because people are moving up to general like it was yesterday, you know. So, but it will give him an opportunity to kind of get his feet wet in the thing.
I think, like most people, when you first get started out in the business, there are so many different options. I mean, you're talking about all band, HF, UHF, VHF, quad band, and then you go, you know, your digital voice, digital data, you know, and then you get into the DMR fusion, you know, all that stuff, and it can be so confusing. You know, just a little bit, you know, take a bite of the elephant, you know, one at a time, you'll get there, but it's so confusing to start with. So I think the handheld is a great way to start, especially if he doesn't have to buy it.
And this is just my opinion, and please, if somebody's out there that tells me I'm wrong, I will definitely believe them. I just think that this is a very good program for people who are brand new that have no idea what they're doing. And the problem with people like that, I know in racing that was the biggest deal. You had to go for the biggest, the best, and spend the most money in order to win. Well, in this case, you don't necessarily have to, and that's what we're here for, to help folks, you know, start out at least on the cheaper side. Mark, you're always a good buffer. What do you think of that?
I'm sorry, Joe, was that directed to me?
Yes, sir.
Please repeat the question.
We were talking about this gentleman who really doesn't know, and I guess we've all been in that spot where we said, well, we've got this much money and we have to go out and buy this, we have to go out and buy that. Wouldn't it be, in your opinion, wouldn't it be better just to join the club for $25 and I'll loan him this radio for 6 months?
Far and away, I think that's the best option available.
Other comments about this nasty Bofang that everybody owns one.
Comments about the borrowing the club's radio.
Right ahead.
Club radio, and I really liked that, and I thought it was a really good. At the time I was like, well, I'd rather just get my own, but the nice thing about getting that club radio was it did get my feet wet, and I was able to, and you had it pre-programmed, so I was able to play around with a few things, and, you know, because I was in the same boat, I was like, where in the world, I want to do it all, and it would just really kind of help me settle in on a little bit, and give me an idea what I actually wanted and would do with it, so, yeah, I thought it was very excellent, and I'm very appreciative of being able to do that.
And that's what we find a lot of it, and I meet probably 75% of the people that run into the club first, and that's kind of what we end up with. I don't know what I want, but I've got $500 and something, and all of a sudden we have to start budgeting for the $500. See if you like it first. I mean, that's what the test drive is all about, right?
And I was thinking I might want something with APRS and all this other stuff, and turns out Legend's not into that. And so I was real thankful, because then I was able to actually choose a cheaper 2-meter, 70-centimeter radio, and I went all out for my all-band, all-mode radio. So I think it probably saved me some money and got me further down the hobby, actually.
KD0TUIU with the TechNet. I think Mike said it best when he says, don't get involved with all this, you don't know this and that, and people will talk you into it. And I've sat there and listened to these guys talk, oh, you got to have APRS, and you got to have GPS, and you got to have all this and stuff. Well, some people don't know how to spell GPS. So it's just, if they don't understand it, I'm not sure this is a good way they can get into it. Doesn't cost them anything except a club membership, and if they were going to join anyway, it really doesn't cost them anything. But it's really hard to explain all the stuff that Mike was and then, like you say, you get into the digital, the DMR fusion, and D-Star and all the rest of this stuff, and it's just kind of like, oh man, this is really overwhelming. When I started out, it wasn't anything like that. There was no such thing as any type of digital type thing. And actually, back in the day, it was 6 meter, and that was pretty much what it was. There was no such thing as 2 and 70 centimeter. But we've gone a long way, I guess you could say. Any other comments?
KL2QO.
You have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, and I was also need to check in here. Kilo Lima 2, Quebec Oscar. Names is Dusty down in Long. And I agree about the club radio and the loan thereof. Honestly, I think that's one of the. I can't really think of a way to get acquainted with the hobby after having taken the test, and the test being so abstract, you know what I mean? Like when I took the test, I had spoken with one person on the radio and a friend who was really into it and who kind of helped me study. So there was there, but otherwise, I didn't know the difference between 2 meters and 440 was in a practical sense, and being able to. I mean, I guess that's still going to be the case, but now that there's an organization that can say, organization with people that can say, here, take this radio, this is how it works, this is how you can chat with us and make your first contacts and all that other stuff. And before I time out, let me reset. I have one question about and this might be, in fact, it probably is overly ambitious, but is there, does the NCARC have any sort of a club space? One of the things I'd like to see is a place where, kind of a club use ham shack, so that somebody who's living in an apartment or in a HOA, or somebody who can't set up a good HF station can still find a place to go out and get some operating experience, or somebody who's a technician or who's just and operate with somebody else from the club who's got a general license and see what that's all like. I don't know, is that being overly ambitious, or is there any feasibility to that? I'm
going to say yes and yes, because our Elmer program is strong, but N0EMP, would you care to talk to this gentleman?
N0EMP, he was breaking up a little bit. I think he was wondering if we have a club shack, like an HF shack, or if that's something we could consider as a club, putting together an HF shack for members to use. And that's probably a good question for the either the next board meeting or the next club meeting for us to discuss. The other side of that is there are plenty of club members that have general or extra and an HF shack that if somebody wants to see some more about what HF operations are about and observe that could certainly be arranged. The other good opportunity for watching HF is field day.
Greg, were you through?
I was N0EMP.
Okay, did that answer your question?
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did, and that is good to know. I've done field day a couple of times, and although the trick with field day is you have to be available that one weekend of the year, and but I do like the sound of getting together with somebody that already has a shack at their house or something. Yeah, for speaking on behalf of a shy person such as myself, it can be kind of challenging to reach out to somebody and say, hey, you have a lot of antennas at your house. Can I come over someday and play around with your radios? Or something like that. But I do live next to a guy who's got that kind of a place, and still figuring out how to approach him. But I was just curious. Thanks for running the net tonight, KLTQO.
One thing that I think we're going to do again, probably in late summer, like August or September, is last year we did an HF seminar. And what we did, we went over to Poudre Valley Fire, their training center over there, and they have a couple HF radios, and we actually brought in some stuff too. And we ran an HF seminar. Anybody wanted to get on can talk. We had 3 or 4 radio stations. I was there, Darren was there, Steve was there, and I think someone else was there. Would you be interested in something like that?
Yeah, I sure would be.
It was attended pretty good last year, so I might go ahead and do that. I hadn't thought about that until you mentioned it. We had about 20 people that showed up, and most of the people that were there were brand new. They were techs and wanted to move on, and of course, if one of us are sitting there or something like that, you can get on that radio and talk, and it's kind of fun to talk around the states and various other things and overseas. I think we got to Brazil, but I think that's as far as we got out.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just like what I did with my buddy when I got my technician class, and ended up getting my Tech Plus and also Field Day. It was just that, and again, it's a great way to get my feet, go past the toes and dip the whole foot in to the hobby without making the commitment to buy the radio, the antenna tower, the cables, everything to get on the air. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, KLTQO.
Well, I'll make that happen. I don't think that's going to be a problem at all. We were going to have a board meeting here in May. We missed this one because James and I were out of town, but I think we'll both be in town by May. So, but anyway, I'll make that happen. That's fairly simple to do because we have a trailer that comes over. It was set up for HF, and of course we have other radios and various other things that there. And actually, the club has got a 5300 ICOM, and I don't know anything about ICOM, so I'm guessing that that's the number sitting down at the shed. So. Yeah, we'll put her on again the next week. But another thing you could do is if you show up to the club meeting, just introduce yourself to myself or Greg, and we'll introduce you to some guys, and maybe they'd be interested in doing it.
I think this is a great idea. Well, thanks for letting me make some comments and for having the TechNet. This is pretty fun when I'm able to join in. KLTQO.
It's Katie's at TYU. I'm sure glad you did. Any other comments about the old bow fangs or anything else? Please call now or questions.
This is NCARC, and I don't have a comment, but I wanted to check in.
I got you, Kerry. Thanks so much for checking in. Do you have a comment about your bow fang? Apparently they're illegal. I guess not. Does anybody else have any comments, questions, or anything like that? Please call now.
Sorry, I don't use my bow fang very much anymore because I got an ICOM 51 A+. And I use it because it does both D-Star and FM, so. And I haven't been out walking, so I haven't been using any handhelds very much.
Well, it's good to know. Well, they're not illegal. They're just illegal to import. So I guess we can still use them as long as we do what we're supposed to be doing, do the right thing, and make sure that they're in tune and they're not out of phase. Any other comments? Very much for coming in with those questions and comments. It was interesting, I have to admit, all the different types of things that are out there. And Phil, we'll get together sometime. I do know the Red Cross over there really needs this thing within the next month or so, and I think we'll be good to go. And I'll let Jim know that we've got one coming. So thank you very much for that. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you for participating here in this TechNet. Again, the TechNet will occur again next week, starting at 6 o'clock, and I have no idea who's going to be running it. It could be James. It should be James, I would think. So anyway, 73, see you all, and this is KD0TYU going to be clear.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.